awful lot of armchair criminologists these days. I met one once at a New Year's Eve party. She was a midwife. I nearly headbutted her. Oh, she said, why don't they bring back hanging? Well, I say hanging, but I think she was really talking about spontaneous lynching. Prisons are all like holiday camps, she said. Well, Butlins, I'd agree, but they're not exactly centre parks. She believed that single parents and their children should be made to wear distinctive uniforms so we can spot them easily on the street. What would you like to see? She asked. Possibly your head on a stick. I have a hard time being a professor of criminology. I'm a woolly-minded, touchy-feely, liberal lefty who thinks that criminals are just like you and me. Well, more like you. I'm what you call a postmodern criminologist. Postmodernity, postmodernism. What's that all about? It's a great avant-garde cultural revolution of our time. I suppose a good local metaphor for that is the sage, Gateshead. At least if you ignore the Gateshead bit. Postmodern criminologists don't know everything about crime and criminals. Postmodern criminologists don't know anything about crime and criminals. Generally, we're just happy to be in a job that doesn't require heavy lifting and standing on your feet all day. So what's criminology about anyway? Well, strangely, it all started with the invention of the Garibaldi biscuit. And this ties in quite neatly with a little piece of local history. In 1861, Giuseppe Garibaldi, that great Italian military leader, visited Tynemouth. Now, it's an odd destination when the cheaper option was the Italian Riviera, but we'll go with it. And he brought his Garibaldi biscuits, and he sold them to the Geordies, who up until this point had only eaten fish and stotties and coal. And that opened the floodgates for all things Italian. Pizza, pasta, cornetto, the Fiat Panda. And it was an Italian, Cesare Lombroso, who established the Italian school of positivist criminology. Now, Lombroso thought that criminals are different from everybody else. They have physical defects. They are pathologically antisocial and offensive. And they are a throwback to a primitive life form. So what's his evidence for that? Well, physical defects. True, if you were to line up 100 prisoners, you'd realise they had just the one eyebrow between them. Pathologically offensive. Well, look at what they wear. If they're not wearing orange boiler suits, it's stripy shirts with tracky buttons and proper shoes. How nasty is that? Primitive life form. You find me anybody in prison who has ever watched a full episode of Downton Abbey. But criminology has its fashions. And by the mid-20th century, Robert Merton had introduced strain theory and the related concept of blockages. Bit like a bowel disorder, but let's go with that. That's basically saying if you can't get what you want, you'll just go and rob a bank. Now, he was American, but he wasn't from Chicago, because that's where all the social disorganization theorists were. And they had to say, if you live in a shit place, say somewhere like Sunderland without Primark, then shit happens. he wasn't from Indiana, because that's where Sutherland was developing differential association theory. And that basically says that criminality is a learned behaviour. Now, it's not like you've got to take a GCSE in it, but if you live in a really shit place, that's like Sunderland without Primark and the pound shop, then you learn a lot of shit. And that's why we've got to give credit to the Norwegians. You see, ironically, or perhaps it was coincidentally, in the same decade that Norway first racked up no points in the Eurovision Song Contest, Niels Christie said there were no such things as criminals, and we therefore do not need prisons. What we actually have is a capitalist system that needs to invent elaborate warehousing schemes for all its criminal elements. But you see, that was written in the 70s. These days we have different kinds of storage systems. Nowadays, we send 50% of our undesirables to university. In the meantime, the UK continued to do very well at Eurovision. In fact, we didn't achieve a null point until 2003. That's Gemini with Cry Baby, if anybody's taking notes. And alongside that ongoing success, British criminologists were developing their own ideas. There was new deviancy theory. Now, this is complex, so I'll speak slowly, loudly, pretend you're all foreigners. If you call somebody a criminal, they are a criminal. Then there's left realism. Now, this is crime's very real, but only for those of you on the left-hand side of the room. There's neo-positivism. Now, they invented a whole new word for criminals, the underclass. You know, the kind of people who don't watch Jeremy Kyle because it's too highbrow. There's administrative criminologists. Now, they count criminals, and they count them again. Count them again, just to make sure they weren't wrong the first time. There's rational choice theorists. Now they say that criminals have cunning plans. And feminist criminologists have also been busy since the 1970s. Now, I'm not sure what they've been busy with, but I think it involved used tampons and it's knitted up beautifully. So that brings me back to me. Back to postmodern criminology. What does that mean? Well, the key word here is relativism. Crime, punishment, justice, rights, equality, innocence, guilt, criminals, victims, it's all relative. What you see, what you're looking at, depends on where you're standing. So I'm going to leave you with an example. I'm going to leave you with something to think about on the way home. Now, it's a bit of an old comedy favourite, but take Crimes Against Humanity. Now, crimes against humanity are at the end of a spectrum of moral degeneracy. Crimes against humanity represent barbarism and atrocity. They are apocalyptic. They symbolise the end of humanity, the death of collective life. But that's only one way of looking at Jedward. They did cut eight in Eurovision 2011, so they may well be the world's great new hope. Thank you very much.